market headlines. To understand the reasons for the day's movers and shakers. And get your portfolio ready for tomorrow. Beaming live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studio.
Saying now 0.8% higher. The Taiwanese index too trading with gains of around 1%.
GIFT Nifty bump up that you're seeing is primarily because of the unanticipated de-escalation ceasefire.
From a profitability standpoint and from a differentiation standpoint, we see Bolt as one of the offerings that we'll like to expand and continue.
2% higher, 24,450 is where the Nifty is starting up.
Bullishness and the kind of capital spending that's happening on AI and other areas are likely to continue.
India has neither commented nor acknowledged the attempts by the US to take credit for any kind of mediation.
Hopeful that the whole transaction would be completed in the second quarter of this financial year.
The sensex has zoomed close to about 2,200 points. The Nifty is higher by nearly 700 points.
Both countries represented their national interests very well. We concluded that we have shared interest.
Information coming out of the DGMO meeting this evening. It'll be a short meeting whereby both sides will only decide how to set a framework for talks in future, how to...
Almost 6% today, led by OFSS, which is seeing an uptick of almost 8%.
Well, it's been a spectacular day. One thing stacking on top of the other. Markets, of course, at the day's highest point pretty much. So it's a 3.5% kind of a day on the Nifty. And I guess, guys, hi, good afternoon. Today is the kind of day when they say that, people use that very often, right? If you miss one day in the market, then it kind of counts for a lot. I don't know if one should go that far, but it's a meaningful uptick that we have.
It's a double bonanza. It's a double dhamaka, as they say, right? Because there's good news here at home. And look at the news, the global news flow. There's not just a deal. They're still talking about a deal. This 90-day pause, I think it's come very quickly because the meetings happened in Geneva over the weekend. And then there was, positive overtures. And now we have the specifics as well, that they will now 90 days put a pause. And they've rolled back the tariffs to, I think, a net of 30% for China.
Well, that's right. And we spent close to around 14 trading sessions in that band of around 800 points. So the mark today to look at was 24,600. So we opened a little below that. But just take a look at the screen. On every hour, you're seeing a 100-point rally. And if we end somewhere around this 24,800 odd mark, well, it'll be a very, very good performance. And the Nifty Bank has bounced back big time. That's up 1,600 points as we speak. That's clearly a large index in there, leading the way, and the breadth of the market. It doesn't get more beautiful than that. 10:1. Wow.
This morning, I very, very warily, I put out one number, 24,857 as the ultimate resistance. We've crossed that also. That was, it looked impossible. Not impossible, it looked like seemingly impossible, but we've crossed that. With Trump and what's happened, I have a theory. The theory is that, Trump, of course, is seen as a bit of a mercurial kind of a person, right? I mean, he can do this, he can do that, he can do anything. Fearless, and that you got to give him credit for that. But he's got a very stable team. Scott Bessent, 30-year market veteran. So it's a big advantage for the negotiators when you say, well, you go in, you walk into a room and say, well, my boss is crazy, so you better deal with me because you don't want to take it up with him, right? I think. And this is very different from his term back in 2017. At that point, it was just, everybody was, there was no stability. So you need a big cohort of stable people and a little bit of unpredictableness as well. So
I liked his statement when he said that the setting, the lake and Geneva, that really provided quote unquote equanimity so we could arrive at this great sort of solution. That's what we have. I think we're going to talk more about China and what's happening in global markets. I just want to make a quick mention.
I think we'll wait for the
and then we'll go to PVR,
management in just a bit. For our viewers, if you're just joining us, I just want to quickly make three points. So these are big tariff reductions that we've seen by both US and China. This is for a period of 90 days. The graphics will come up. So US tariff on China is now 30%. What's the breakup? 10% reciprocal and 20% for fentanyl. this is much more positive. So I was saying in the morning that maybe it gets down to about 45-50%. And then that could be a starting point. This is not even 45%, and it's actually 30%. And then we'll hear more. China, of course, has also cut its retaliation tariffs to 10% on US, but that does not matter. It's about the deficit in the US. It's about what US imposed on China, which is now being cut to 30%, which is the real deal. The tone, if you heard that press conference, Scott Bessent and Greer, the USTR, very positive tone. And that one comment, Bessent essentially stressing a few times that neither side, neither China nor the US, wants a decoupling. China saying they are committed to stability of US-China relations. I mean, I think it's a pretty powerful message, which I think one will have to kind of sort of pencil in. And it's a bit of a break. I think this is a really big break because the numbers are one thing, but so far it was looking extremely hostile, and it was looking like this will take and maybe it'll still take a long time to really get done. But the tone, tenor of that press conference, really very respectful and really wanting to do business, continuing to do business with one another as well. As I said, as far as the Nifty is concerned, we have passed the 6% retracement. And of course, intraday, we've taken out the December 2024 swing high as well, which is 24,857. So it's a super session which is playing out. But PVR next, Ruby.
Absolutely. So let's get the performance numbers on the screen in a bit. We'll just connect with the management as well. It's been a quiet end to the year, if I can say, for PVR. Most of the operational metrics are slightly flat. Revenues down 1%, EBITDA is up 2%. But the margin over Q4 of last year, the margin has improved. It's come to about 22.6. Some will argue that it's still shy of market estimates, but at least, there is some improvement over last year. So what lies ahead as the company looks at, navigating itself and morphing into a sort of a new strategy, the strategy that Mr. Bijli always speaks of, which is films, food and fun. Thank you so much both for joining in, Ajay Bijli, Managing Director, as well as Gaurav Sharma, CFO of the company. Good afternoon to you, gentlemen. And I'm glad we're being able to speak at a time, right? There is some peace and calm overnight, and our men in Brave have done their job. So I'm glad we can go back to talking films, food and fun. Ajay, let me throw it open with you. Very quiet end, like I'm saying, to the year. But investors would want to know how quickly you're moving on that strategy. I mean, whether occupancies have improved in the fourth quarter. Let's talk about the films business first. What is your outlook? How do you describe Q4 in terms of occupancies, etc.? And then what's the outlook?
Well, last year was actually a very bad year, because Hollywood was impacted because of the strike, and our circuit really depends a lot on Hollywood as well. So we had a dip in the number of films and as well as the box office collections from Hollywood last year. Even Hindi film industry did not have any big hits. We had two big hits only, Stree and Chava, but none of the big stars had any big film at all. So all that has changed this year. So why we look a bit more optimistic about this year is because all the big stars are back, and also Hollywood is coming back in full force. And of course, regional films have always played a very big role. There's a Kantara 2, the franchises always do well, that's coming. There's a big Kamala Hassan movie, there's a big Rajnikant movie. So keeping all that in mind, the film business definitely is looking much better than the last year, because all regions are firing. At least on paper, all regions are firing. There's not a single segment which doesn't have movies to play this year.
I completely would agree and echo that sentiment, and looking forward to more of it. I remember, I've seen a couple of movies again, whether it was a Sky Force or Raid 2, which Nigel and I watched together. So yeah, good movies are always fantastic. So just tell us about occupancies. Gaurav, maybe you can take this question. Occupancies in Q4, and whether you expect more improvement, Q1 so far, what you're seeing, and then, going into the rest of this year.
I think we believe that, as Mr. Bijli said, the lineup of films this year is pretty strong, and we will see an uptake in occupancy throughout the year in all the 4 quarters. That said, the numbers are going to be definitely higher than last year, but maybe volatility will continue to be a factor during the year in terms of supply of content. Occupancies full year for last year were roughly around 23%. Financial year 25-26, we are looking forward to a better number.
Where were you at the end of Q4, Gaurav?
Q4 occupancies were about 20.5%. Okay. It was a subdued quarter. Other than Chava and Skyforce, the two Hindi films, there were no other big Hindi films. Hollywood was also subdued, and therefore the occupancies were slightly lower than expected.
Okay, all right. Hi, good afternoon, Ajay, as well as Gaurav, and good to see you on the show. Disclosure out there, rate 2, backing up, family. So I was happy to see 125 crores in terms of collections. Good going out there. But Gaurav, you said that you're expecting occupancy to be better, right, in the coming year?
Yes.
From around the 23% on an average, what should it look like? And the other metric we track is the ticket prices. How do you see that movement out there? In the past quarter, was there any discounting?
Well, I think if you look at our ticket realization, last year we have been at the same number of 259, which was in financial year 24, despite of, a drop in admissions and lack of big blockbuster Hindi films and lack of tentpoles from Hollywood. So our strategy has been to, capitalize on blockbuster films and also offer more value and promotions for mid to small scale films. We did a lot of Cinema Lovers Day, National Cinema Day last year. We did many re-releases, and despite of that, the ATP has been quite flat. I think current year, financial year 25-26, we expect the average ticket pricing to grow, and the growth will be largely in line with the inflation. And it will also be dependent on the mix of films that get released.
Okay, and occupancy? Expectations on occupancy to better from 23%?
Yes, the expectation on occupancies is that it's going to be better. I would not like to comment on specific numbers because it's really a function of how films perform at the box office. And, there is always some, some sort of, unexpected factors, which is very difficult to predict. But, looking at the lineup of films, Hindi film industry as well as English films, very strong lineup. And we are very hopeful that it's going to be better than last year.
Just one more question. What about screen addition? What was it in the past year? And what are you looking at in this year?
Well, we have been very careful. Mr. Bijli, you would like to comment on that?
Yes, sir, please.
Just this only, that we opened about 77 odd screens. And in this first month itself, we've opened another 20 screens. So again, the screen opening will continue to remain at about 100 odd screens every year. And there's nothing that will stop the growth. Of course, we're closing down screens as well, which are in old malls or shopping centers, which have already seen their, end of life, like in any other retail business. But overall, the screen count will be about 100 screens every year.
Net addition. Mr. Bijli, good morning. Gaurav, good morning as well. Just the re-releases are also another thing, right? I mean, I guess I can tell you there was so much excitement about Andaz Apna Apna in office here. It's a legendary. Interstellar was another one. I saw Interstellar once, I think, for the 5th or 6th time. But there's a whole new sort of segment that you've opened up. But Mr. Bijli, broadly, and you guys talked about the lineup, and I have it in front of me here as well. Would you say, and as you've always said, you don't know. I mean, something works, something clicks, it clicks. Yeah. But looking at the pipeline, does it look, how should I put it, much better, much more promising than what you had last year?
Definitely, because, Hollywood plays a very important role in our circuit, because the way the cinemas are geographically located, in the demographics that we are, Hollywood has a very important role. And Mission Impossible, Avatar, Jurassic Park, plus this big Apple movie, which is coming on IMAX, F1 of Brad Pitt. Then so many other, Conjuring is coming again. We've got Jaws getting rebooted and coming again. Lots of movies. There's a Keanu Reeves movie, Ballerina, I think it's called. That's coming. So I think, and then of course, Amir hasn't been on the big screen for a very long time. And he's coming with Sitare Zameen Pe. And also, Hrithik didn't come last year. Ranbir's film is coming later with Sanjay Leela Bhansali. And then Houseful 5 is a very strong franchise. And I like these movies because they resonate with the entire country. And regional, even last year, regional played a very important role. Pushpa 2, which is a franchise, did very well. Now we've got Kantara 2 coming, Rajnikant's movie, Kamala Hassan's movie. Then there's a movie called Toxic, which is coming, of Yash, towards the end of the year. So I think first time, at least on paper, I'm seeing all three or all regions having a good supply of movies.
And in this sense, I mean, Bollywood has not, if I can put it that way, it's not pulled its weight for the last couple of years, but it looks like Hollywood, Bollywood, and regional, as you're saying, right? All three, it's a pretty promising lineup in that sense. Gaurav, I don't know if my colleagues touched upon margins. Would you want to just guide investors to where you see that you see margins panning out in the year FY26?
So Prashant, typically we don't provide any guidance on margins because it's very difficult in our business to predict how the films will perform. I think we have a high operating leverage business, and any incremental admissions and occupancies largely will flow into bottom line. This year, financial year 24-25, our EBITDA margins adjusted for Ind AS 116 accounting was roughly around 8%, and with uptick in footfalls and admissions, the margins are going to be, far better than what we did last year.
Okay, Ajay, if I could come back to that larger question. I know this is a longer conversation, but for now, before we let you go, if you could leave us with maybe a microcosm of what lies ahead. The film's food and fun strategy. And on the fun side, you're doing so much, right? You're trying to sweat your assets in a different style. I know that now there are sort of, perhaps some of the theatres are being used as comedy shows or other, exhibitions, other corporate events. And I read somewhere that I think you're trying to get a liquor license as well in some states to add to the fun quotient, so to speak. And then there's the food part of it. There was a JV with Devyani. So just in a nutshell, if you could tell us, we've discussed films at great length, but for food and for fun, in terms of a revenue potential, what's the kind of mix that you will target by the end of the current fiscal? What can investors look out for over here?
Well, we've only opened one food court so far, but we got about 10 in the pipeline just now. And I think that was really the strategy of, that's what COVID taught us as well, that don't have all your revenues only coming in a post-ticketed, environment. And I was very keen to do something pre-ticketed and also take advantage of the fact that PVR Cinemas itself and Inox Cinemas, we attract, a lot of footfall. So where all the boxes are getting ticked, the mall is good, the development is good, the tenant mix is good. We are going to get high footfalls. Why don't we, adjacent to our cinemas, also open food courts? But both Devyani and PVR, we are very cautious in our initial phase of expansion, just making sure the modeling is right. And then now, in fact, we just had a meeting with them last week. And now we have about 10 odd properties which are going to be coming up very soon, because we just don't want to do it for the heck of it. We want to make sure it's a very quality offering, because a lot of developers themselves also open food courts. And so what do we bring to the table with this brand called Treat Junction that we have got? We needed to make sure that the strategic, positioning in the marketplace is correct. What percentage of our revenue is going to be that is going to be still small. Yes. And, we are close to about 6,000 crores of revenue. So it's going to take time before this food business, our own Zia Maze, which is the 4700 BC business, whatever tie-ups we have with aggregators like Zomato and others, that percentage I can't give you just now. But
got it.
It's a move in the right direction.
Got it. Got it, Ajay. Since it's relatively small, we'll keep that away. But before we let you go, we need to ask you, what's the current debt on the books? You were talking about an asset monetization program. Where do we see the debt number come down to by the end of this fiscal, FY26?
Well, let me answer that. We've significantly strengthened our balance sheet over the course of last 2 years since merger. Our net debt level stand at about 950 crores today, which has come down by about 480 crores over the course of last 2 years. Despite of the business volatility we have seen, we have curtailed costs. We have been pretty capital efficient. I think going forward, as I said, as operating cash flows in the business improve, debt levels are bound to come down. Our objective is to reduce overall leverage in the balance sheet as much as possible. As far as asset monetization is concerned, I think, we've been very careful in terms of making sure that we get the right value for the assets we own. At this stage, we feel that, we are able to organically control the debt levels and not sell any own real estate properties. But we will continue to assess our strategy going forward and see if we can further improvise it.
All right, gentlemen, appreciate you joining in. Thanks a lot for joining in. Wishing you all the best for the remainder of this fiscal. And Ajay, from what you said, there are two of them I'll be looking out for. One is Sitare Zameen Pe and the other one is House Full franchise. We'll look forward to that. Due disclosures on board. Thanks a lot for joining in.
Thanks a lot, Nigel. Thank you.
Well, time to slip into a short break. On the other side, we'll have Sean Reid, who will be joining in to help us out with his take on how he sees the globe evolving with regard to the trade situation. And Rohit Srivastava as well will be joining to give us the levels he's tracking on the indices. Welcome back. You're tuned into Closing Bell, and as we speak, forget about 24,600, 24,700. We're on our way to 24,900 as we speak. That's what the screen is telling you. But let's get in some important commentary we got in earlier today. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Gray addressed the media about the U.S.-China trade deal. Here's an excerpt of that interaction. Let's listen in.
We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels. Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%.
Well, that is a very, very positive tone, tenor, what we heard from Scott Bessent and Mr. Greer there as well. Sean Reid, founder and managing director, China Market Research Group, is with us. Rohit Srivastava, founder and strategist at IndiaCharts.com, is also with us. Gentlemen, thanks both of you for joining us. Sean, your first take. This sounds, I mean, that 30% is way better than what anyone thought. At the upper bound, people were thinking, well, they probably drop tariffs to about 55, 60% and then start working from there. But this is 30%. And also, as I said, I mean, no decoupling, want to work together, how China was very, very open, willing to work, etc. I mean, this is a way better outcome. Would you agree?
This was a huge win for China. Not only did China not blink, they didn't fold, they didn't bend, but Trump did. And he didn't just blink, he actually kowtowed and fully prostrated to the Chinese for 90 days. And so China is really happy right now. There's a sense of exuberance in the country because China proved to the world that it's the new economic superpower, that the United States had to bow down because yesterday you had 0 ships coming from China into the Los Angeles ports. You saw small, medium enterprises in the United States had started laying off workers. You started to see even Republicans were complaining about empty shelves and high inflation and prices that were going to hit the shelves of Walmart and the websites like Amazon in the coming weeks. So Trump backed down. And you know what? China didn't give up any concessions. 0, completely, none. So this was very good for China. I think this is good for the world markets because it's showing Europe, it's showing Vietnam, it's showing Cambodia that they don't need to bow down to the United States and Trump right now because he's a paper tiger. He's not going to throw a lot of tariffs because he knows at the end of the day, there's too much political pressure in the United States. Now, I'm American. As an American, this was a huge loss of prestige, a huge loss of face for American might. This was a buffoonery. This is something that will go down in the annals of business history as one of the biggest mistakes ever by an American president for launching Liberation Day tariffs in the first place. But again, I'm smiling because this is good for the world economy, good for equity markets, and especially good for China, which is where I'm based right now.
But
markets
Sean,
are open for business here.
But Sean, compliments on being so direct and clear. That's always very refreshing on television, right? You're calling it as you see it. But it's a 90-day window, like the US opened up for the rest of the world as well. Do you believe even at the end of the 90 days, the tariff is going to remain at 30%?
Look, I tweeted yesterday that as a face-saving measure, Trump should reduce the tariffs between 20 and 40%, because this will show his base that he didn't completely back down. And by having 90 days, he still has some leverage over China. But again, as I said, it's very clear that China is going to be able to withstand the pressure and push back very hard. 30% is probably where Trump is going to keep it. This is going to be a tax on the United States consumer. This is going to hit profit margins of American companies. But at the end of the day, it's okay for China. Chinese companies are the big winner out of this because no company, aside from maybe Apple, that's going to relocate some manufacturing of iPhones to India. Most companies are not going to leave China because of this. They don't know if they go to Vietnam if there's going to be more tariffs. So the big winner is China because most companies will just stay in mainland China on the supply chain and sourcing and manufacturing. Now, as for China, for whether or not there's a 30% reduction, it doesn't really matter for China. Why? Because China has been de-risking from the United States for the last 7 or 8 years. In 2017, 18% of Chinese exports went to America. That number is down to only 14%. China actually exports 16% to ASEAN. You also see that this week, Xi Jinping is meeting with Luis Silva, the president of Brazil. He's also hosting the foreign ministers of Latin America and the Caribbean, CARICOM. So right now, Chinese companies are saying, you know what? We don't need the United States. China has shown that to the world. They're now able to sell to the global south, or I prefer to say the global majority. The one sticking point for China, the one weakness economically is bad relations with China. Between China and India, which is a real shame. I hope that China and India has better economic relations in the next couple years, and that Modi realizes Trump is a paper tiger and can't be trusted. So Modi should move India's economy getting closer to China in the coming 3 to 5 years. That's what I would love to see for both countries.
Sean, since you briefly mentioned India as well, we were fancying our chances that we could be first up with regard to the tariffs and maybe strike a favorable deal. It seems China jumped the gun. In fact, they jumped the line. What do you fancy in terms of, India's chances in stitching up a nice deal with the United States? First look at it, we fancied our chances, but it seems as of now, it's not playing out to script.
Look, the United States is still going to want to favor India in some ways because they view China as a superpower and as a threat to American might. So what do the Americans historically do? In the 1980s with the Plaza Accords, they tried to destroy Japan. And basically Japan has had 40 years of stagnation because of it. They've tried to do it with the Chinese. The Chinese are not going to bow down because they're too strong manufacturing-wise. They also have a lot of innovation. They also have the largest retail market in the world. But the problem for India is that I believe you are going to grow over the next 10, 20 years. You should grow over the next 10, 20 years. It's right for India to have a larger say in world affairs. You're the largest, most populous country in the world. But here's the thing. I love America. I'm American. I might run for Senate one day. But the Indians cannot trust America. Because if India gets too powerful, and you will get that powerful in 10, 20 years, the Americans are going to try to destroy India and contain you the way they did it to Japan and the way they're trying to do it with the United States and China right now. India needs to be very cautious, shouldn't put all of their eggs in one basket and get too close to the United States. That's why I said Modi should balance between America and balance between China. But frankly, you all need to move closer to China because China's not going to try to contain you in the same way that America does.
Absolutely. Sean, you're bringing up some very interesting points. Let me throw a slightly out of syllabus question at you as well, because these things end up being slightly related, especially behind the scenes. I mean, very interesting, political realignments you're speaking of. India technically has been, tried to sort of spread its risk. We've always had a relations with the Russians as well, so to speak. On China specifically, since you raised that point, I mean, what we've seen in the last 4-5 days here on the subcontinent, there's the trade talk, but there was very serious geopolitical, issues that flared up as well. And India, I can tell you, was watching every sentence coming out of China very, very carefully. So the Americans reacted, they did what they did, and the Chinese have reacted. My question, out of syllabus question is this, that will what is happening in the geopolitical theater and the, might I say, slightly constructive statement that we had from China, could that also impact trade relations, ours with the US and ours with China? I mean, you are there on ground. What are you picking up?
Look, I do not believe that China wanted Pakistan or terrorists in Pakistan, whoever did it, to kill those innocent people in India. That's a horrible thing. My heart goes out to them. I believe that China was saying, you know what, the last few months, they've been getting closer and closer with Modi and getting closer and closer with India. So the last thing that the Chinese wanted was to have a flare-up of tensions between Pakistan and India. That does not help China in any way economically. It does not help China geopolitically. because China is looking for friends like Russia, like India, powerful nations, to have a balance of power against the United States. So I just don't see, I'm hopeful for better relations between China and India. I would hope that the Indians don't view China as supporting a proxy war against India via the Pakistanis. I just think that's a lot of sensationalism that you've seen in Indian Twitter. I just don't see that being the case. China benefits, India benefits from closer relations. And again, I love America, but be scared of getting too close to America. You either are a vassal of the United States or you're an enemy.
All right. Sean, strong comments, strong statements. Thank you very much for joining us with that perspective. Appreciate it. That's Sean Rain, founder and managing director, China Market Research Group. I think the press conference, the military briefing is also beginning. And I think the people are gathering there, as you can see in the box in the window. Rohit has been patiently waiting. Rohit, I'm going to come to you in just a bit. Maybe we'll have to sort of keep going in and out of that particular briefing, and we'll do that. Maybe I can throw one question to Rohit, and then we'll have to sort of play it by the ear. Rohit, thank you for waiting, first of all, while we were finishing up that conversation with Sean. It's a pretty massive move that we have, Rohit, on our hands today. And of course, supported by big changes, especially the US-China one over the weekend, the ceasefire. What is your sense? Will this last? Will the market build on these gains? Your thoughts, Rohit?
Yeah, when I was listening to Sean, so a couple of things that he highlighted that we need to think about, especially what would be the impact of all of this on the largest player, that is the US, in terms of earnings, economic growth in the months ahead. Remember that you've driven sentiment to the most extreme negative. And from there, when you roll back tariffs and put it at 30% or whatever that final number is, it always looks better than the worst. So it doesn't mean that it's not bad. The ideal situation is that we move towards a more free trade world. So that is our first.
Rohit, sorry, apologies. We will continue. We will start this conversation afresh. But let's, for now, cut across to that briefing.
नाश मनुज पर छाता है पहले विवेक मर जाता है हित वचन नहीं तूने माना मैत्री का मूल्य न पहचाना बोले मैं भी अब जाता हूँ अंतिम संकल्प सुनाता हूँ.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind. Welcome to this special press conference on Operation Sindoor. Like yesterday, we'll have the opening statements by the three senior officers who are here with me. You all know them well now. However, for those who were not here yesterday, let me introduce you to them. In the middle, we have Air Marshal A.K. Bharti, Director General Air Operations, who will provide insights on the air domain. To his right is Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, Director General Military Operations. He will cover the land aspects. And to my immediate right is Vice Admiral A.N. Pramod, the Director General Naval Operations. Following these briefings, we will be having a few question and answers. May I now request the DG Air Operations to commence the proceedings.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday, we had a detailed brief on the successful joint operations that were carried out to destroy the terror infrastructure in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as well as in Pakistan itself. We also iterated that our fight was with terrorists and their support infrastructure and not with Pakistan military. However, it is a pity that the Pakistan military chose to intervene and bat for the terrorist, which compelled us to respond in kind. दोस्तों, हमारी लड़ाई आतंकवाद और आतंकवादियों के खिलाफ थी। इसलिए 7 मई को हमने केवल आतंकवादी ठिकानों पर ही हमला किया था। पर अफसोस इस बात का है कि पाकिस्तानी सेना ने आतंकवादियों का साथ देना उचित समझा और इस लड़ाई को अपनी लड़ाई बना ली। इस परिस्थिति में हमारी जवाबी कार्यवाही अत्यंत आवश्यक थी और इसमें उनका जो भी नुकसान हुआ, वे खुद इसके लिए जिम्मेदार हैं। हमारी तरफ से हमारी एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम्स देश के लिए दीवार की तरह खड़ी थी और इसको भेदना दुश्मन के लिए नामुमकिन था। This brings me to the point, how have Indian forces managed to minimize the damage to both civilian and military infra in the country, in spite of the unrelenting efforts by the Pakistani forces? Most of you and the majority populace within the country have had a lot to say about the layered and integrated air defense systems put in place by the Indian Armed Forces, which includes the assets of the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, in addition to the primary air defense assets of the Indian Air Force. As you all are well aware, this robust AD system comprises of a large variety of multi-layered AD sensors and weapon systems, from point defense weapons like the low-level air defense guns, shoulder-fired man-pads, and short-range surface-to-air missiles or SAMs, to area defense weapons like the air defense fighters and longer-range surface-to-air missiles within our inventory. Additionally, the numerous waves of drones and unmanned combat aerial vehicles employed by Pakistan were also thwarted by the indigenously developed soft and hard kill counter-US systems and the well-trained Indian air defense personnel. All this was brought together as an efficient and effective AD environment by the Integrated Air Command and Control System, or the ISCCS of the Indian Air Force, which accords us the net-centric operational capability which is vital to modern days warfighting. While much has been said and written about the newer systems, I would like to place on record the performance and efficacy demonstrated by even the older battle-proven AD systems like the Pechora, the Osa AK, and the LLAD guns in countering the Pakistani threat vectors in the current operations. They were all modern generations, but these battle-proven systems stood the test of time and took them on head-on. Another highlight has been the stellar performance of the indigenous air defense weapon system like the Akash system. Here, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to mention that putting together an operationalization of this potent AD environment has been possible over the last decade due to unwavering budgetary and policy support provided by the Government of India in acquiring state-of-the-art equipment and weapon systems. Some of the results achieved in countering the enemy threat vectors over the last week are now being shown on the screen. Shown on the screen is a probable enemy PL-15 missile, which is of Chinese origin. This missile has missed its target and you can see the pieces now which are available with us. Another weapon system or weapon which was found was the long-range rocket, the pieces of which you can now see on the screen. We have talked about the loiter munitions and the unmanned aerial systems, and here are some of the glimpses of those systems which we have brought down. To your right, with the right undercarriage or the wheel, you can see is the Yeeha system, which is of Chinese origin with Pakistan. You can see some quadcopters, and you can see one odd Sonka drone hanging by the wire. All these have been brought down by our trained crew and air defense systems. As far as our offensive actions are concerned, yesterday I had already shared some details about the targets engaged by the Indian Air Force. The composite picture of the Indian Air Force targeting so far is now shown on the screen. As you can see, we have targeted the length and breadth of the adversary. I'm sure most of you would have already seen the effect of these strikes on ground, courtesy the large number of videos and photographs being circulated in the media. A few representative examples from the open source are now being shown to you on the screen. In fact, two of them. This is the strike on the Noor Khan Air Base. And you can see the effect. I'm sure most of you have seen the video. I have also picked it up from your sources only. And this is the aftermath of our strike at Rahim Khan Air Base. You can see the massive crater that it has left on its runway. And you can see the pinpoint accuracy of our weapons. So with that, giving you an overview of how our air defense systems have thwarted the enemy drones, their fighter aircraft, their missiles, and resulted in minimal losses on our side. I would now hand over to the DGMO to cover his portion.
धन्यवाद एयर मार्शल भारती। मैं आज आप सब के साथ भारतीय सेना के एयर डिफेंस मेजर्स जो कि हमने इंडियन एयरफोर्स के साथ मिलजुल कर तालमेल में लिए, उसके बारे में कुछ बातचीत करूंगा। इस विषय में मैंने कल भी कुछ टिप्पणी करी थी, लेकिन आज मैं इस युद्ध के अहम एस्पेक्ट के बारे में आपको थोड़ा और पर्सपेक्टिव देना चाहता हूं। हमें एयर डिफेंस ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के एयर डिफेंस की कार्रवाई को एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट में समझने की आवश्यकता है। मैंने आपको कल बताया था कि पिछले कुछ सालों में आतंक की गतिविधियों का कैरेक्टर जो है उसमें कुछ बदलाव आ रहा था। अब हमारी मिलिट्री के साथ साथ मासूम सिविलियंस जो कि अपना बचाव करने में विफल थे, उन पर भी हमले हो रहे थे। 2024 में जम्मू सेक्टर में शिवखोरी मंदिर को जाते हुए यात्री और इस साल अप्रैल में पहलगाम में मासूम पर्यटक इस खतरनाक ट्रेंड के विशेष उदाहरण हैं। पहलगाम तक पाप का ये घड़ा भर चुका था। उसके बाद जो हुआ उसके बारे में हम कल विस्तार में बातचीत कर चुके हैं। क्योंकि आतंकियों पर हमारे सटीक हमले लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल और इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री को पार करे बिना किए गए थे, हमें पूरा अंदेशा था कि पाकिस्तान का वार भी बॉर्डर के उस पार से ही होगा। इसलिए हमने अपनी एयर डिफेंस की पूरी तैयारी पहले से ही कर ली थी। हमारी इन्वेंट्री में शामिल काउंटर मैन्ड एरियल सिस्टम्स, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वॉरफेयर के साधन और एयर डिफेंस वेपन्स का इंडियन एयरफोर्स के इसी प्रकार के सिस्टम्स के साथ एक अनोखा मिश्रण किया गया। इसलिए आपने देखा कि जब जब पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स ने हमारे एयरफील्ड्स और लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस में 9 और 10 मई की रात को लगातार हमले किए, वो इस मजबूत एयर डिफेंस ग्रिड के सामने विफल हो गए। आपके सामने इस ग्रिड को एक तरीके से दर्शाया गया है। आप देख रहे हैं कि इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री से कितनी लेयर्स, रडार्स, काउंटर अनमैन्ड एरियल सिस्टम्स, उसके पीछे शोल्डर फायर्ड वेपन्स, हमारे विंटेज एयर डिफेंस वेपन्स जो कि काफ़ी सालों से हमारी सेना में हैं। एयर मार्शल भारती ने भी उसके बारे में बात करी। और लास्ट में हमारे मॉडर्न एयर डिफेंस वेपन सिस्टम्स। तो कोई मौका नहीं था कि पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स ये मल्टी टीयर डिफेंस को पार करके पीछे हमारी एयरफील्ड्स या लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस को टारगेट कर पाए। ये जो डायग्राम आप अपने सामने देख रहे हैं, ये मुझे एक इंसिडेंट की याद दिला रहा है। और मैं आपको इस उदाहरण के ज़रिए से एक ये एस्पेक्ट हाईलाइट करना चाहता हूँ। जब मैं स्कूल में था तो तकरीबन मेरे ख्याल से ये 70 का दशक था और उस समय इंग्लैंड और ऑस्ट्रेलिया के बीच में, आज शायद क्रिकेट की बात भी करनी चाहिए क्योंकि मैं देख रहा था कि विराट कोहली ने टेस्ट क्रिकेट से रिटायरमेंट ले ली। कई भारतीयों की तरह वो मेरे भी फेवरेट क्रिकेटर हैं। इंग्लैंड की फेमस एशेज सीरीज चल रही थी और उस समय ऑस्ट्रेलिया के 2 बहुत तेज गेंदबाज जो कि क्रिकेट हिस्ट्री में बड़ा उनका नाम है, जेफ थॉमसन और डेनिस लिली, उन्होंने अंग्रेजी बैट्समैन और उनकी बैटिंग लाइनअप को तहस नहस कर दिया था। और ऑस्ट्रेलियंस ने उस समय एक कहावत निकाली थी, दैट फ्रॉम एशेज टू एशेज एंड फ्रॉम डस्ट टू डस्ट, इफ थॉमो डोंट गेट हियर देन लिली श्योरली मस्ट। और अगर आप इस लेयर को देखें तो आप समझ जाएंगे कि मैं आपको क्या बताने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं। तो अगर आप सारे सिस्टम्स को पार कर भी गए तो आपको फिर भी एयरफील्ड या लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशन या जो भी चीज़ को आप टारगेट कर रहे हैं उसमें पहुंचने से पहले कोई ना कोई इस लेयर्ड ग्रिड का सिस्टम ज़रूर गिरा देगा। जो दुर्दशा कल आपने पाकिस्तान एयरफील्ड्स की देखी और शायद आज भी एयर मार्शल भारती की प्रेजेंटेशन में, हमारी एयरफील्ड्स हर प्रकार से ऑपरेशनल हैं। यही नहीं, पाकिस्तान के ड्रोन्स और वेपनाइज्ड यूएवीज से की गई हमलावर कोशिशें भी इस ग्रिड के कारण नाकाम हुई और जो बचे कुचे ड्रोन्स थे उन्हें हमारे शोल्डर फायर्ड हथियारों से मार गिराया गया। मैं यहाँ पर अपनी बॉर्डर सिक्योरिटी फोर्स की भी सराहना करना चाहता हूँ। उनके डायरेक्टर जनरल साहब से लेकर बॉर्डर पर तैनात बीओपी पर पहरा देने वाले आखिरी जवान भी हमारे इस अभियान में बढ़ चढ़कर शामिल हुए और बहुत बहादुरी से उन्होंने हमारा साथ दिया। उनके काउंटर अनार्म्ड सिस्टम्स भी हमारे इस मल्टी टियर्ड एयर डिफेंस ग्रिड का हिस्सा थे, जिसके कारण पाकिस्तान की नापाक हरकतों का विनाश किया गया। आपने सुना ही होगा, जब हौसले बुलंद हों तो मंजिलें भी कदम चूमती हैं। In the end, I would like to highlight again that in every single domain that Operation Sindoor has been prosecuted, there has been absolute synergy between the three services. Not only have we, in this endeavor, been fully supported by our government, departments, and agencies, I cannot here not mention our 140 crore countrymen that have stood behind us with their prayers and goodwill, urging and inspiring us to achieve our mission and objectives. For that, we salute you. You are indeed the best. Jai Hind.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. To talk about the air defense capability, the Indian Navy operates as a composite network force capable of simultaneously addressing threats emanating from all domains. That is
air, surface and subsurface through amalgamation of advanced sensors synchronized on the combat management systems. In effect, the maritime force is able to ensure persistent surveillance, detection and identification for a comprehensive maritime domain awareness, including the airspace. Effectively using multiple sensors and inputs, we are maintaining continuous surveillance to degrade or neutralize threats as they emerge or manifest to ensure targeting at extended ranges. All these are conducted under the umbrella of a comprehensive and effective layered fleet air defense mechanism that caters for all threats, be it drones or high-speed missiles or aircraft, both fighters as well as surveillance aircraft. The fleet operates as a composite force, maintaining a surveillance bubble at extended ranges using advanced radars. Any aerial target that attempts to penetrate this bubble is detected and identified using various techniques and technologies, affording quick and clear distinction between commercial, neutral, and hostile aircraft or flying objects at ranges in excess of the anticipated attack range. The carrier battle group, with its integral air wing, provides the first layer of this layered mechanism. Adequately equipped and trained to high degree of proficiency, our pilots are able to operate both by day and night. In the current standoff, the presence of our aircraft carrier with large number of MiG-29K fighters and airborne early warning helicopters prevented any suspicious or hostile aircraft to close the carrier battle group within several hundred kilometers. अगर मैं सरल शब्दों में बोलूं तो कोई भी संदिग्ध और दुश्मन के हवाई जहाज को कैरल बैटल ग्रुप के कई सौ किलोमीटर पास आने का मौका नहीं दिया. Over the past few years, and most importantly, immediately after the cowardly incident by Pakistani-sponsored terrorist attack at Pahalgam, we had validated our anti-missile and anti-aircraft defense capability in a complex threat environment using cross-platform cooperative mechanism. Our powerful carrier battle group with formidable offensive capability was able to operate with impunity and maintained an uncontested presence in the area of operations. Effectively, it compelled the Pakistani air elements to remain bottled up close to the Makran coast, denying any opportunity to be a threat in maritime space. The Indian Navy maintains a credible capability to detect, identify, and neutralize any aerial platforms that threaten our units at sea. To sum up, the Indian Navy's dominance thus ensured that, should we choose to, we can strike at will. Thank you, Shamdo Varna, Jai Hind. May I now hand over to Director General Air Operations for further proceedings.
Thank you, Pramod. I think a lot has been said, and I would only end by saying and emphatically state that all our military bases, all our systems continue to remain fully operational and ready to undertake any future missions should the need so arise. और अंत में यह मैं स्पष्ट शब्दों में कह देना चाहता हूं कि हमारी सभी मिलिट्री बेसिस और सारे इक्विपमेंट और सिस्टम्स ऑपरेशनल हैं और ज़रूरत पड़ने पर अपने अगले मिशन के लिए तैयार हैं और तत्पर भी हैं। शुक्रिया दोस्तों, और यदि कोई अभी क्वेश्चंस हैं तो हम लोग तैयार हैं उसके लिए।
Second, ladies and gentlemen, like yesterday, I'll request you to raise your placards, which most of you are doing. Again, repeating it, anything which is confidential in nature will not be responded to. And as you are aware, the DGMOs, all three of them, have got an important assignment after this, which you also are very well aware of. So we shall not be taking too many questions today. I started with both the ends yesterday. Today I'll start from the center, 237. 237. And I'll request you to please maintain, I'll ask you, I'll come to you.
हेलो सर, मैं आवाज़ आ रही मेरी? हेलो सर, मधुरेंद्र, मैं न्यूज़ नेशन से आपके प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस के शुरू होने के ठीक पहले एक वीडियो हमने स्क्रीन पर देखा जिसमें राष्ट्रकवि रामधारी सिंह दिनकर की कृष्ण की चेतावनी की प्रमुख पंक्तियों को उद्धृत किया गया और सीधे सीधे दुश्मन को ये संदेश दिया गया कि याचना नहीं, ठीक पहले राष्ट्रकवि रामधारी सिंह दिनकर की जो कृष्ण की चेतावनी है उन पंक्तियों को सामने रखा गया और कहा गया कि याचना नहीं अब रण होगा, जीवन जय या मरण होगा। कल शिव तांडव स्रोत के जरिए दुश्मन को संदेश दिया गया था और आज राष्ट्रकवि रामधारी सिंह दिनकर की इन प्रमुख पंक्तियों के जरिए ये किस तरह के डिटरेंट को क्रिएट किया जा रहा है, किस तरह के मैसेज को दिया जा रहा है, इसको थोड़ा इलोबरेट करके अगर आप बताएं तो जाहिर तौर पर ये संदेश और व्यापक तौर पर जाएगा। और एक छोटा सा सवाल मेरा यह है कि ड्रोन अटैक को लेकर जो बातें सामने निकल कर आई हैं, एक बहुत हाइप क्रिएट था टर्किश ड्रोन को लेकर, TV2 और उसके तमाम ड्रोन को लेकर। ऐसा लगता है कि वो हाइप और ओवररेटेड ड्रोन जो है वो भारत में धराशायी हो गया, एक मैसेज दुनिया को चला गया कि अब हाइब्रिड वॉरफेयर में इसकी औकात नहीं बची है।
ओके, ऑल राइट, ओके, थैंक यू। आपने क्या नाम बताया अपना और किस एजेंसी से हैं? न्यूज़ नेशन से। बहुत अच्छा लगा आपकी हिंदी सुनकर और हिंदी कविता सुनकर। तो मेरे कलीग ने अभी बताया, आई थिंक आई मेंशन्ड यीहा टू बी ऑफ चाइनीज ओरिजिन। आई वुड लाइक टू करेक्ट माई सेल्फ, द यीहा ड्रोन्स आर ऑफ टर्किश ओरिजिन, सो दैट कम्स टू योर क्वेश्चन। ऑल राइट, चूंकि आपने शुरू किया श्री रामधारी सिंह दिनकर जी की कविता से, हमारे राष्ट्रकवि रहे हैं, और क्या संदेश दिया जा रहा है, तो मैं बस आपको रामचरितमानस की एक कुछ पंक्ति याद दिलाऊंगा, आप समझ जाएंगे। तो याद कीजिए वो पंक्ति जो है, विनय न माने जलधि जड़, भय 3 दिन बीत, बोले राम सकोप तब, भय बिन होए न प्रीत। तो समझदार के लिए इशारा ही काफी। और जहां तक ये ड्रोन, टर्किश ड्रोन्स का सवाल है, आपने देखा किस तरह के रैकेज यहाँ पे फोटोग्राफ्स हमने दिखाए हैं, चाहे वो टर्किश ड्रोन्स हो या और कहीं के भी ड्रोन्स हो। हमारे काउंटर यूएस सिस्टम्स, हमारे ट्रेन्ड एयर डिफेंस ऑपरेटर्स पूरी तरह सक्षम हैं और हमारी देश की जो इंडिजिनस कैपेबिलिटी है काउंटर यूएस के लिए, उसने दिखा दिया है कि चाहे किसी भी तरह की टेक्नोलॉजी आ जाए, हम उसको काउंटर करने के लिए तैयार हैं। और मुझे बोलने की ज़्यादा ज़रूरत नहीं है, आपने खुद ही अपनी आंखों से देखा है हमने इनका क्या हश्र किया है। धन्यवाद।
ऑल राइट, 226।
Sir, Aditya Raj call from TV9 Network. Yesterday, the DG ISPR came out with a press conference, and while you have been continuously providing satellite images and proofs, undeniable proof really, of the airstrikes that happened and the damage that is caused, there's no evidence coming in from the other side. What do you think is there? Are they trying to bluff their people? Are they trying to build some kind of a propaganda for the anger that domestically is there in Pakistan? And secondly, related question, you mentioned Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists. The brother of Maulana Masood Azhar, Rauf Asghar, who was killed. Pakistan DGISPR is trying to build a propaganda where he's saying that Lashkar-e-Toiba, Rauf from Lashkar-e-Toiba was at the entire funeral, but he's saying that he's alive, and they're trying to confuse the people because the two names are similar. The Jaish chief, who is the brother of Maulana Masood Azhar, and the Lashkar guy who was with the Pakistan army at the funeral. So could you clarify what has really happened? Because there is a lot of propaganda and information warfare happening from the Pakistan side. Thank you.
I think the first part of the question you have answered yourself. I need not delve more on it. Why they are doing what they are doing, information is not forthcoming from there. Obviously, that is expected, and they would do whatever it takes to assuage their people and minimize whatever information about the damage comes out. Here, I would like to clarify, as I said yesterday, our fight is with the terrorists. Our fight is not with the Pakistan military or Pakistan civilians. So that is very clear, and we are very clear in our targeting. So coming to the second part of your question as to what media or what propaganda spin the other side is trying to make out a story. Well, it is for them to answer, and it really is not a military question for us to answer here. We've done our job. We have done what we're expected to do, and that is it.
I'll come this side, 249.
सर, मैं पूनम पांडे हूँ ना। उसमें एक सेंटेंस उन्होंने यूज़ किया था कि दिस इज़ न्यू आर्ट ऑफ वॉर। तो हम सब ने देखा, शायद पहली बार देखा कि किस तरीके से आसमान में दोनों एयरफोर्स के एयरक्राफ्ट थे। क्या आप बता सकेंगे, क्योंकि हम जो लगातार जब कवर करते हैं हम देखते हैं 2016 में के बाद ड्रोन का जो पूरा वॉरफेयर में रोल है वो दिखा था, तो हमने भी वो दिखाया, और किस स्तर की ये वॉर थी? अगर थोड़ा आप क्लैरिटी दे सकें कि कितने एयरक्राफ्ट उनके इन्वॉल्व थे, लगभग कितने हमारे थे, क्या इसे अब तक का सबसे बड़ा जो जंग हुई है आसमान में वो कहा जा सकता है, और ड्रोन के रोल पे थोड़ा और ज़्यादा, क्योंकि 2016 के बाद जिस तरीके से बड़ा है।
देखिए, जैसा मैंने कल कहा था कि इस लड़ाई के डिटेल्स अभी हम शेयर नहीं कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि इसमें काफ़ी कुछ ऑपरेशनल डिटेल्स होंगे। कितने जहाज थे दोनों तरफ से, किस तरह की लड़ाई हुई, these are questions of technical details, which we may not be able to share firstly, and which we may not be able to share, to explain to you the way it needs to be explained. Suffice to say कि yes, ये एक दूसरी तरह का warfare था, and it is bound to happen. हम लोग पिछली लड़ाई, अगली जो कभी भी लड़ाई होगी, भगवान करे ना हो, लेकिन अभी यदि हुई तो ये पिछली लड़ाई की तरह नहीं होगी। हर एक लड़ाई जो है अलग तरीके से लड़ी जाती है, और टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट्स हो रहे हैं। हम भी उस एडवांसमेंट्स के हिस्सा हैं, हमारे एडवर्सरीज भी हिस्सा हैं। सो इट इज़ अ कैट एंड माउस गेम, एंड यू हैव टू बी अहेड ऑफ द कर्व टू बीट योर एडवर्सरी. So that is what is going to happen. So if you ask, was this different? Was this engagement different? Definitely it was different. And a lot of new aspects have come out, but we were prepared for it, we were trained for it, and we were equipped for it. That is the only aspect that I can share with you at this time. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the last question, 161.
Hi, sir. Thank you, sir. Snesh Philip here from the print. So the social media, the Twitter is abuzz with the fact that we hit a site called Kirana Hills, which is supposed to be the nuclear storage facility. And there is a lot of rumors about Sargodha. There are foreign analysts who've mentioned that the Sargodha attack led to certain leaks. Is there a confirmation that we actually hit Kirana Hills, or we were careful of not to do any such thing. Thank you.
Thank you for telling us that Kirana Hill houses some nuclear installation. We did not know about it. Okay. And we've not hit Kirana Hills, whatever is there. Okay. I did not brief in my briefing yesterday. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. As I said yesterday, as I said earlier and yesterday, it is difficult to take everybody's questions, and the DGMers have to reach somewhere right now. So thank you for coming. Please send in your questions on paper. We will definitely answer them. Thank you.
Okay, well, that is an absolutely united, strong, powerful front and face which has been put up by the Indian Armed Forces, ready to deal with any eventuality, and really, a powerful message. Lots of detail once again. Some of it, of course, we've heard before, some of it new, but I think the message is unambiguous. The forces remain ready to respond to any threats whatsoever, land, air or sea. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break here. Markets, of course, are up at the day's highest point. There is no let-up whatsoever. Actually, if you look at, the gains, 24,900. It's one of those days when you wonder, 30 minutes markets will shut. If you had 3 more hours, another 300 points? I mean, it's like 100 points every hour. But jokes aside, it's a really strong session. And you've got, IT index, which is up 8%. The Nifty IT index is up, it's up 7%. Not small. Real estate is up 6%. Metals is up 6%. Capital market index is up 5.5%. And so on and so forth. I can rattle off more. But the smallest gain on a sector is about 3.5%, 4% today. So that's the kind of day that you have going. It's a culmination of factors and it's a powerful start to the week. We'll take a quick commercial break here. Rohit Srivastava is waiting for us on the other side, and we'll have more opinion coming in. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back. There's 20 minutes to go for close. Rohit Srivastava has been with us, but we've not had the opportunity to go to him. We went to him briefly, and then, of course, the briefing started. Rohit, thank you for waiting. But it's a outstanding day for bulls, and really shows you what markets are all about, right? I mean, who would have thought last Friday at by 3:30 that this is coming our way? But now price action. Let's talk about that. Where from here, Rohit, in your opinion?
It's an interesting move, and usually you want to give it another day or two to see, where it really moves further from here. Ideally, if you do get some kind of a pullback and then the up move continues, we can at least say that the uptrend is still in force. The thing is that you don't want to call a top very early because sometimes the momentum itself can stretch. But what I was trying to say, before we went into that meeting is that sentiment, essentially, which is one of the things we trade off, has gone from extreme negative and now will go into extreme positive. So we are sort of going to get there, if not today, maybe in the next couple of days. And that sort of puts us at the opposite end of the spectrum from where we were at the end of March and April. So what that means is that a lot of the things which were bringing it down, even them going back is making it sound very, very good, even though tariffs still remain. So the difference is essentially in the technical to fundamental setup. I think the technicals are, gone from bad to good, and now at the super extreme, it will look like sentiment is all bullish. But are we fundamentally changing anything? Because tariffs are going to be higher than where they were 6 months ago. That leads to some kind of a slowdown. And so how do we really monitor? What is going to be the main factor that is going to drive the market from here? And in my sense, it's going to be going back to looking at those two macro factors, which is the dollar and bond yields. Because the US still has a large bond rollover coming up over the next 6 months. That doesn't go away. Last couple of days, we have seen bond yields start to rise again as the markets have, also been going up. Which means money is moving out of bonds into equities, the exact opposite of what you really want to be seeing. And unless you get direct Fed support into the US bond market, that will not stabilize and will continue to haunt us at some point of time. So I think till that risk is not completely taken off the table, we should remain prepared for, volatility at some point of time, another round of selling or something that can happen more from the global front. I think the geopolitical part of the story is sort of slowly going to go out of the news, and you'll be back to looking at, macro factors, earnings growth, and, what it really brings to you.
Rohit, as you were talking, I was also doing the numbers and math and just looking at the levels. From that low that we hit, 22, which is the 4th of, or the 7th of April, I think it was, just after the tariffs were announced. Yeah. From that point onwards to today, 24,900, it's been a 13 to 14% run on the Nifty in a matter of just about a month or thereabouts. So it's been, market moving on steroids. What would the advice be? Now, let's kind of make it a little more granular. That'll help viewers. Since you're sounding a little cautious, would you advise profit booking after such a turbocharged move? If yes, then in which pockets? Where can you still keep longs open? Where can you take fresh longs? Just, kind of break it down for us in terms of specific strategies.
See, the whole strategy starts index down. Before we get to stocks and sectors, you have to first be sure that your overall market view is right. If you are making gains on the way up, surely the market is giving you an opportunity to lighten up. There are a lot of people who've been waiting on the side or who've bought the dip into March and April, apart from those who've probably done nothing throughout this time period. So you're getting another opportunity, to book gains at a near 25,000 kind of level. Remember, this is the same level we were at in December. If we just look at the high that we made in December was 24,857. Okay, and we're just slightly above that right now. So around this level, do we really sustain or don't we sustain? Give it a day or two. But it's better to, take some money off the table, create some cash, and look at the opportunities that may get created maybe by end of May or maybe by, early June, where we can actually take a better call on the macro front. Because it doesn't take very long for, things to change, and you start focusing on different things. I mean, if these, geopolitical tensions are actually behind us, whether it's war or tariffs, we'll start talking about whether earnings growth is there, whether you're going to get a slowdown on the higher tariff levels from today, and whether the bond market is going to respond or not. And that's going right back there. So both the dollar and bond yields, like I said, have been rising, and those risks should get you to, create some cash, get some risk off, and then we can think about, okay, what sector? Because see, we can say IT, but then IT is US related, and that's where the trouble likely would start, if at all. So I cannot get into IT right now. Defensive sectors, they have a bounce in them. Yeah. But how far they will go? So they can be trades. You can find individual trades. Yeah. But you might not really be able to find something that you will hold on to.
Got it. No, absolutely. But, with this US-China big climb down, looks like global growth will be hurt less. But what has already happened, the effects will show through in the coming weeks and months. And I guess that's the reason why IT is doing very, very well now. Let's welcome in Nimesh as well. Rohit, stay with us. You may want to listen to the stocks Nimesh is going to put out because D Street Chatter is back in Bombay from Omaha. Nimesh?
Thanks, Prashant.
How was the trip and what's on your chatter bag?
Well, from a trip point of view, Prashant, it was one of its kind of experience. Personally, for me, great experience. Lot to learn from, lot to meet a lot of large guys as well. So a superb experience, so to speak. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. So
we should have had some pictures to go along with the chatter today from Omaha. We'll do that. Go on.
Anyway, in terms of individual names, Prashant, I am back, and so is the block season. So looks like there are a lot of blocks which are in the pipeline. I'll focus on a couple of names to start with. Both Paytm and Zomato, both are buzzing in trade, big volumes as well. But I understand in both these stocks there could be large blocks coming very soon, and it could be potentially clean out trades from a strategic investor. So watch out for large blocks in those two names. The second stock is Utkarsh Small Finance Bank. It was buzzing on Friday. Again, in today's market, the volumes are on the higher side. And I understand the volumes have picked up at HNI desk. And leading HNI investor has been actively buying as well in the last couple of days into Utkarsh Small Finance Bank. So that's the second stock. Third stock is Interglobe. It's been buzzing in trade. We've been highlighting as well since morning. The volumes are also on the higher side. Interestingly, there is a Morgan Stanley tactical buy as well in Interglobe, and they expect a sharp up move in the next 30 days on that particular stock. So that's Interglobe. And the last name is Suven Life. It was part of my chatter a few weeks back. There is a scheduled board meeting tomorrow for fundraising. I understand it's going to be via preferential issue, and some very influential HNI investors are likely to be part of the list of preferential investors. So watch out for that big announcement in Suven Live as far as the fundraising is concerned.
All right, now interesting list. Paytm, Zomato, expect large block deal soon. Utkarsh Small Finance, Interglobe, Suven Life, and more. Nimish, good to have you back. Thanks very much for joining us. Rohit is with us. There's, 12 minutes to go for market close. So just one more question, Rohit. Any individual trades from here, Rohit? Or as you began by saying, just give it a day, 2 days more and see what the market wants to do.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense to really give it another day or two. Earlier, you asked me whether we should book gains. That is one. You can build strategies. For example, people can look at straddles. That's an interesting way to take this kind of market where you're getting big swings, but you can be concerned about the direction a straddle can actually sort of take care of that. So that is one way to look at it, which involves buying both calls and puts. So it's sort of a protection on both sides. So that's the only thing I can think of right now. In terms of Bank Nifty, also, if you're looking for a further breakout, I think it has to get past 55,700. A close above 55,700 would be a positive sign from banking. And if that is there, then that would also tell us that, the Nifty could then gain further on the back of that.
Okay. All right, Rohit, we'll leave it on that note for today. Thank you very much for the perspective. And we look forward to discussing this in more detail in the days ahead as well. Take a quick break. We'll come back. Absolutely bazooka market day, and we'll count down to the close very soon.
Back. Well, let's focus on a couple of numbers that we're going to be getting post-market hours then. Tata Steel, that's the big one that'll be coming out with its set of numbers. The big name, we get a sense in terms of what's going on in the Indian markets as well as in the European markets. Consolidated numbers come up for you on the screen. Expected to degrow on the top line by close to around 4%. The EBITDA degrowth, though, will be a little less. That's expected to come down by close to around 2%, telling you there'll be mild margin expansion that we should work with. And profit number for Tata Steel is all over the place because of the one-offs. Remember, what do we already have? We have the cheat sheet. The volumes numbers are already in for India, UK, as well as for the Netherlands business. Now, the key numbers you need to track is the EBITDA per ton. For India, we are working with around 12,700 rupees, which will be an improvement on a sequential basis. Though, in fact, you need to keep in mind that realizations for, across the globe has been much lower on a year-on-year basis, though it will improve on a sequential basis. Input costs will cool off because coking coal costs have come in lower. Europe continues to report a loss. The loss is likely to be around $39 on a per ton basis. So that'll be more or less flattish because the UK business is struggling. It's going through the transformation, while you have Netherlands that will deliver a break-even number. For Tata Steel, as always, what is the path ahead? How is the global demand environment? Is the worst in terms of pricing behind us? And also, what are their plans with regard to the green transition that they're working with in Netherlands as well as the UK, out there as well? They're doing entire reformation. And the net debt number, how does that shape up going ahead? Because that's always the sword that's hanging over them. So Tata Steel's numbers, India should see an improvement. Europe should see a more or less flattish number with a net loss number. However, the path ahead is more important. Big set of numbers coming up post-market hours.
Okay, all right, Nigel, we'll watch out for that. For now, let's take another quick break. We'll be back with more on the markets in just a bit.
Welcome back. Well, the last few minutes, to wind up trade, but I'll tell you what, the screen is looking very, very good. And as we are winding down, actually, incremental number of stocks are moving up more than 10%. Datamatrix, that stock is up now close to around 15%. It's certainly one of the top volume buzzers that came up on the screen. Tex Macro Rail up to close to around 12%. RVNL up close to around 12%. And these stocks actually have seen a bit of a bump up in the last 30 minutes, so that's why I'm pulling them up. Force Motors, the other one, that's up close to around 11% as we speak. Nelcast, that's the other one that's up, in close to around 9%. Now it's up close to around 10%. So big move is what we're seeing on some of these names. Massive moves on massive volumes. The last tick of the day, in fact, could be, the highest point of the day. Innova CapTab as well. That's another stock that's higher. EPL is up close to around 11%. Well, the list goes on. Take a look at the breadth of the market. 2,400 stocks that are advancing for around 240 stocks that are declining. The big heavy lifting that's done today, well, it's done by tech as well as the Nifty Bank. And when both your batsmen are in top form, well, it helps the Nifty to move up. The total market capitalization that's added today is 16 lakh crore. That's the kind of addition I've seen in terms of wealth. And the Nifty Bank, I'll tell you what, it's going to close today around the 55,400. This morning, I had mentioned that the Nifty needs to do well. The Nifty Bank needs to find its form because it got hit harder. The 56,000 mark, that remains elusive. The next leg of this rally starts once the Nifty Bank can conquer that on a closing basis.
And imagine, Nigel, in just about a month and maybe 4-5 days, the market has recovered so much of lost ground, a 15% rally from the 7th of April in the face of tariff uncertainty, liberalization day, and of course our own geopolitical issues. It's been phenomenal. Anyway, I think it's down to the last 1 minute. So let's recap and look at who the stars have been today. Actually, lots of them. But IT definitely takes the cake. With the Wall Street futures, NASDAQ futures up 4%. IT stocks very excited. Infosys 7.5% higher. HCL Tech Wipro 6 to 6.5%. TCS 5.5%. But like I've been saying, this rally has had lots of legs. A lot of global-facing stocks. Metals was the next shining bright area of the market. Whether it was a JSW Steel or a Tata Steel, most of these names on the upside. Tata Steel ahead of numbers, about 6% higher. Move on, then you have the big boys coming in. ICICI Bank, Reliance, big gains here as well. 4 to 4.5% on many of these stocks. L&T 4%. So it's a long list of winners today. HDFC Bank 3.5%. You really can't find fault. Even consumer names, something like a Lever or an Eternal, these stocks had plenty of green around them as well. ITC 3%, for instance. The only problem for the large cap space, one, IndusInd Bank, down 3.5%, and the other was Sun Pharma, which ended with a cut of 3%. Some concern around pharma stocks with this executive order that's expected, which promises to reduce the cost of medicines for Americans. But otherwise, looking very good. Mid-cap index going home with a gain of 4%. Strong advance decline ratio, 10:1. 10 stocks advancing for every one that was declining today. Very strong Monday. All right, with that, it's curtains on this edition of Closing Bell. Many thanks for watching, but don't go anywhere. Markets Forward will take the action ahead.